No training or experience could prepare police for the vision from hell they walked into when they entered a home in the peaceful Hunter Valley hamlet of Aberdeen on March 1st, 2000. On the kitchen stove was a human head sitting in a pot amongst vegetables, a ghastly braise. Plated on the kitchen table were what appeared to be steaks presented with vegetables. The steaks were from a human. In the lounge room was a human body, skinned by someone with expertise. The victim's skin was on display, dangling from a meat hook on the architrave. The victim had been stabbed at least 37 times. The ferocity of the attack made it difficult to count the number of wounds. It was a crime so dark, evil, and corrupted, but as they later found, it was the work of someone sane. The person who planned the killing knew exactly what they were doing. Slaughterhouse worker Katherine became the first woman in Australia to receive a life sentence without parole after she decapitated and cooked John Charles Thomas Price. Most lovers, after an argument, end with an apology, but for Katherine Knight, murder and mutilation were the end result. Not only did this Australian slaughterhouse worker stab her lover with a butcher knife at least 37 times in February 2000, she chopped him up, cooked him, and prepared to serve him to his own children. Welcome to the grisly story of Katherine Mary Knight. Born on October 24th, 1955 in Tenterfield, Australia, Katherine Mary Knight was the product of a shameful affair between her parents. Her mother wasn't only a mother of 4 boys with another man, but she even met Knight's father through her current husband. When their secret relationship came to light, it rocked their small town. Already off to a bad start, Knight's chaotic childhood didn't get much better from there. Her father was a violent alcoholic who raped her mother multiple times a day. Knight herself claimed that she was sexually assaulted by several family members until the age of 11. In school, Knight was known as a bully who terrorized smaller children. Without ever learning how to read or write, she quit at the age of 15 to work at a clothing factory. A year later, she landed her dream job at a slaughterhouse, cutting out the internal organs of animals. It's been noted that she loved her job so much, she hung her first set of butcher knives above her bed, just in case she ever wanted to use them. And as we will come to learn, eventually, she did. While working at the butcher shop, Katherine met David Kellett, a raging and violent alcoholic, much like her father. Already well accustomed to this kind of violence, Katherine surprised her new admirer when she got involved in one of his drunken scuffles. He realised very early on that Katherine Knight was capable of absolute carnage with her fists. Before long, he found himself being dominated by her. In 1974, she convinced him to marry her. He was heavily intoxicated the entire time, and her mother even warned him about her daughter's temper, saying that Katherine had a screw loose somewhere. Well, she wasn't wrong, because on their wedding night, Kellett fell asleep and Knight took issue with her new husband's exhaustion, so she started to strangle him. David woke up and managed to fight Katherine off. Even though she attempted to kill him only 1 day into their marriage, their partnership lasted for around 10 more years. Common in most marriages, there were many bumps along the road, but theirs slightly different. David was often unfaithful and once even left his wife and their 2 daughters in the middle of the night. After discovering one of David's affairs, which was soon after Katherine gave birth to their first child, witnesses reported seeing her push the newborn around town in a pram, purposefully slamming the baby into fences that lined the streets. Katherine also placed their 2-month-old infant on the local train tracks shortly before the train was due. Luckily, the train didn't come and the infant was spared, and during the ordeal, she also threatened several people with a stolen axe. It's fair to say that this woman was a full-blown lunatic and had all of the characteristics of a ticking time bomb. So following this incident, authorities placed Knight in a psychiatric hospital for treatment. Psychologists diagnosed her with postpartum depression, and with that, she spent a few months in a psychiatric hospital where she told nurses that she intended to kill the mechanic who fixed David's car because that made it possible for him to leave her. Despite this threat, David took Katherine back when she was released from hospital. Their reunion didn't last long, and Katherine went through a period of deep distress after David finally did leave her. In 1986, shortly after her breakup with David, Katherine Knight quickly jumped into a new relationship with David Saunders, a local miner. Within a few months, Saunders moved in with her and her 2 daughters. However, he kept his apartment, and Katherine became incredibly jealous and suspicious about what he did when she wasn't around. Like her previous relationships, this one quickly grew toxic and violent. At one point, she slit the throat of his 2-month-old puppy in front of him just to show him what she was capable of. For some unknown reason, they stayed together and even had a daughter a year later. However, Saunders left Katherine shortly after the birth because she had attempted to kill him with a pair of scissors. She then met a man named John Chillingworth. They stayed together for 3 years and had a child, which was Katherine's first son. While no violent incidents have been reported about their relationship, it ended after Chillingworth learned that Katherine was having an affair with a man named John Charles Thomas Price. The beginning of Katherine Knight and John Price's relationship was without complications. He had 2 older children who lived with him, and they seemed to like Katherine, and he made enough money as a miner to keep her comfortable. They moved in together in 1995 and things were going smoothly. However, when she suggested they marry and he declined, she went back to her old ways and turned violent. Katherine Knight framed Price for stealing things from his company and got him fired. Though initially he kicked her out, a few months later they started seeing each other again. However, this time he refused to let her move back in. According to their friends and neighbours, Katherine Knight's violence then began to escalate. In February of 2000, an argument between John Price and Katherine Knight finished with her attempting to stab him in the chest. He took out a restraining order against her in an attempt to keep his children safe. Toward the end of the month, Price let on that he was concerned about his safety and told his co-workers that if he ever went missing, it was because Katherine Knight had killed him. It's fair to say he was so right to be afraid. On February 29th, 2000, John Price came home from work and followed his usual routine of checking in with his neighbours before going to bed at 11 PM. Katherine Knight came home shortly after, made herself dinner, watched TV, showered, and then went upstairs. She then woke Price. The 2 slept together and then went to bed. Then, Katherine Knight took a butcher knife from next to her bed, where she had always kept them, and stabbed Price 37 times. According to evidence, he woke up during the attack but could not fight her off. He died to his wounds, and this is where things get very disturbing. Katherine Knight dragged his lifeless body downstairs, skinned him, and hung his body from a meat hook in the living room. She then decapitated him and cut up pieces of his body to cook in a stew. She then made a dish for herself, though the half-discarded contents later found at the crime scene suggest that she couldn't have finished her meal. She then laid down next to the headless, mutilated corpse of Price, took a large number of pills, and passed out. Price's co-workers remembered his warning the next morning and called police after he didn't show up for his shift. The police arrived to find Katherine Knight's gruesome crime scene and immediately detained the comatose Katherine Knight. Once she woke up, she claimed to have no memory of the night before. In the kitchen, police found Price's head boiling in a pot of vegetables on the stove. On the next table, they found 2 plates, each labelled with a name. In horror, the police realised that Katherine Knight had planned to serve John Price's body parts to his children. She had removed Price's head and skin using the same knives she had used to decapitate pigs. Katherine Knight peeled John Price's body with such expertise and precision that she was able to leave the entire skin intact, including Price's nose, ears, genitals, mouth, and hair. Medical officials reported that Katherine had removed John's skin in such an experienced manner, allowing them to reattach the skin to the body prior to the funeral service. Despite her claims that she had no recollection of the night, Katherine Knight was quickly charged with murder. In 2001, her trial commenced, but it didn't get very far. For reasons that remain unclear, Katherine Knight changed her plea deal to guilty, and the judge adjourned the case without testimony. She was escorted to prison that same day, and the judge ordered that her papers be marked never be released, making her the first woman in Australia's history to receive a true life sentence. 5 years later, in 2006, Katherine Knight appealed her sentence, claiming it was too severe a punishment, but the Supreme Court of South Wales dismissed her appeal. To this day, Katherine Knight, nevertheless, remains her innocence and refuses to accept responsibility for her actions. That's it for today. I hope you found this one as disturbing as I did. The woman was a bloody lunatic from start to finish. I'm actually surprised that she wasn't stopped soon before she got to John. Anyway, stay safe, like this video if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel because there's always something new here every day. Hopefully, I'll see you all in the next one.